I got a little mission. I'm here at a facility and they told me I gotta clean up my trailer a little something. So I'm gonna get set up inside the trailer. This is something that happens every now and then. Sometimes you're left with not that big of a mess, but it has to be addressed. That's what happens here at the Solomon Project, where it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that counts. I'm your host, Richard Burns. I'm all set up. Got my broom, got my bag, my garbage bag, got my gloves. I'm all set up. So give me a second. I'll be right back. So it's 90 something degrees outside, but it's 48 degrees in here. We got to sweep up this bad boy a little bit because security requested that I do so. So let's get it. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm right next to the refrigerator unit. So it isn't just about driving, okay? It's not just about that. There are other things involved. Like sweeping out these trailers. One time, I arrived at a facility, and because I had switched trucks, I didn't have my broom. But I had one of these handheld, you know, the small ones to grab whatever dirt you can from the floor. I swept an entire trailer with that thing. And let me tell you, that wasn't a refrigerator unit. And that went down in Georgia when it was hot. I think at my next physical, I was 6 inches shorter because I shrank from the heat. It was kind of crazy. Got these big pieces of wood right here. I'm gonna get them out. That's a little too obvious right there. And the shipper might complain, yeah, I'm picking something up. I mean, obviously, the trailer's empty, so that's what I would be doing. Get the bigger pieces out, the smaller pieces up. I'll do what I can. Fussier than others. I don't think they'll be that fussy, I hope. But that's what it is. So I did a live. My home slice DeAndre showed up. I did the live real late. Or super early. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. The professor might have been sleeping by that time. Okay, she does have bills, so she has to work. And not only that, she's got to be considerate to her spouse. He could have been sleeping. So for her to be up, tapping on that keyboard late night, I don't know. I don't know how that would have gone down. Yeah. So with Miss Miranda and what she read off from that article. And this is info for my truckers out there. FreightWaves has deduced, there I go again with that multi-million-dollar words. FreightWaves has deduced that the reason behind the low freight rates is because there are carriers out there, and we're not talking about the big carriers, we're talking about the small carriers. You got small carriers that got those PPP loans, and because they got those PPP loans, they were able to endure these years with low rates because they had the money from the PPP loans. Now, the PPP loans were those loans that were issued during the pandemic, and the initial wave of money, which was a huge amount, wasn't for the small business owners, it was for the corporations. And it was a political move. It was a political move because it was important for the Trump administration to maintain. It's important for the Trump administration not to allow the unemployment rate to go up. So the corporations, thanks to, this was probably a master plan created by Steve Mnuchin, who's a big old swamp guy, who was from the very institution that Trump used to criticize Hillary for being associated with people from this institution, which was Goldman Sachs. Steve Mnuchin is from Goldman Sachs, hired by Donald Trump because he only hires the best. So Mnuchin is probably the architect behind making sure that these corporations got a boatload of money so that they can keep people on the payroll, so that they can maintain or to prevent the unemployment figures from going up. So these people were allowed to stay home and get a paycheck. And then eventually it went down to the small business owners. And in the Spanish Truckers channel, I used to hear a lot of truckers bragging about these loans from the Small Business Administration, how they procured those loans at a very low interest rate, and they didn't have to start making payments for quite some time. It was nothing like a conventional loan. Nothing like that. And some of the money, they didn't even have to pay back. So imagine, you got some truckers that were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they were able to hold off. So while people like Tony T, that owns his own truck but has a loan on it, Tony T is out there having to deal with these low rates, going crazy. These other truckers were accepting these cheap rates, helping to drive the rates even lower, making it miserable for people like Tony T. And Tony T can go ahead and thank Steve Mnuchin for that. the Trump administration. That's when it went down. I said back then that if a corporation couldn't endure what was happening as a result of COVID, then they should be allowed to go out of business. Now, we're talking about a huge spike in unemployment. And yes, it's true, it would have been unpopular with people. But now you got people like Tony T suffering as a result of that. That's what went down. Or that's what that article from FreightWaves was breaking down, which makes a lot of sense. And before I shut this thing down, just want to let you know, right now, the Russians are in serious trouble with their currency. Very serious trouble. Now they got to kiss the Chinese people's butt, or the Chinese government's butt, because the Chinese are buying huge volumes of oil from the Russians. The Chinese will only purchase the oil if it's bought in the Chinese currency, the yuan. Which is a scary proposition for the Russians, unfortunately. There's a good chance I got an acquaintance of mine. He's an economist in Connecticut. He was I don't remember where he was teaching. I know he graduated from Trinity College up in Hartford, Connecticut. And he was mentioning that the ruble, which is the Russian currency, was going to collapse completely. And it's happening. It's happening just as he said it. Now you would think that the yuan was in a better position, but it's not. Because China is a major exporter. So if their currency becomes stronger and at a higher value, it would make it harder for them to sell their goods to the rest of the world, because the value of their goods is going to increase right along with the value of their currency. So, and the Chinese economy right now is in really bad shape, and it's going to get worse. Their population growth is so low that the next 10 to 20 years is going to be extremely challenging for the Chinese. Extremely. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to finish up over here, clean this thing up. And as always, stay fresh, keep it moist, keep it profitable. Let me check to see what Kitty's doing. No. Don't leave, Kitty. Don't leave. I'm gonna need help cleaning this up. Don't do that. Kitty, don't do that. Kitty.
Arabam Dacia, seviyorum çift kalem aça. Göremedi kimseden fayda. İşler